In this presentation, we're going to talk about leadership styles for long-term success. I was doing a lot of research on how to present the different styles of leadership, and the one that I like most really entails these four styles: directing, coaching, supporting, and delegating. I did find as many as 9 different styles of leadership out there in any given presentation. And as I started to look into them, it's just there wasn't a lot of difference between some of those different styles. And so this is a very clean way to kind of introduce leadership styles. And it also is going to fit very well into some of the other presentations that we're going to do. And I'll tell you more about that as we go through this. So why do I need to know that? Well, first of all, you need to match the style of leadership with the person. So think of the individual. When they first join an organization, they lack any knowledge or skills to be able to do their job. So they virtually bring nothing to the table. So they require a certain style of leadership, and if you use the wrong style of leadership, obviously, that person's going to get pretty frustrated. And from the same token, you take it to the other extreme. If you have a team member who's been around for several years and operationally probably knows as much as you do, or more in some cases, and you try to micromanage that person, it's going to be very demotivating for them. So it's really important that you identify where this person is and match that leadership style to that person. Situations are always going to change as well, so you need to match the style of leadership with the situation. And an example here would be if it's an emergency situation where a decision has to be made immediately, that's really where you need to come in and you just need to make that decision. So it would be a certain style of leadership that does not involve, going to your team at all to get any input. So let's take a look at directing style first. In the directing style, the leader defines completely the roles and the tasks. The leader is going to supervise extremely close, and decisions are only made by the leader. So this is truly a micromanagement style of leadership. The communication process is really just one way. So I tell you, listen. And this is the model, or this is the style of leadership, unfortunately, that most of us start with, and a lot of us never get beyond. And if you've ever worked for somebody who uses this style of leadership, it is extremely hard to work for them, and long term it's really hard to stay with them because you're really not progressing and you're not learning because you're just being told what to do at all times. This style of leadership obviously is very useful, as I mentioned, for somebody who's new. So if I lack knowledge and skills to do my job, the directing style of leadership would be very appropriate. The next one we're going to go through is coaching. In the coaching style of leadership, the leader is going to ask for suggestions and ideas before he or she makes the final decision. So we're starting to get the team engaged and get feedback, but we still hold the final decision on our own. This is a great way to develop team members, and it gives you a good sense of really what their thought process is as well. The communication changes from one way to two-way, again, where you're getting your team members engaged, you're asking questions and opinions, and then you make your final decision. In the supporting style of leadership, the leader delegates really most of the day-to-day decisions to the team and the team members, but you really become more of a facilitator. And you still take part in the decision-making process, but you really do that through clarification and questions, and not so much by you making decisions. The final stage or style of leadership is team members control the day-to-day decisions, and they involve the leader when needed. And this is the delegating style of leadership. And this is a very effective style of leadership if you have a team that's been around for a long time and is very self-sufficient. A word of caution on this style: it's key that your team understands when to get you involved in things. And that's really where I think that the potential downfall is on this. It's great if you have a team that you can use this leadership style with, but it really takes you out of the loop from a day-to-day perspective. So it's critical that you somehow have a communication process where you know what's going on and you know what's being done without getting in there and being involved necessarily yourself. So just some final thoughts on these 4 styles. Styles are going to change as team members progress, and we've talked about that as a team member progresses from being very new to being very experienced. Your style that you use may revert back in some situations, so you may use a certain style of leadership with somebody or with your team and find that you need to change that back. We talked about the situational leadership model a little bit, but basically in another session we'll go through this in much more detail. But the situational leadership model really talks about 2 different factors when you're trying to consider which style of leadership to use. One being the level of experience and knowledge, and the other would be the level of enthusiasm. And so more on that in a future session, but these 4 styles of leadership fit very well within that. And then finally, the stages of team development model, again, where one of the presentations out there defines the development model that teams go through in 4 different stages, and really these leadership styles fit within that as well. So that's really it on the leadership styles. I hope you find this useful. Again, let me know if you have any questions, send me an email, and we will have future sessions that will go into much more detail about situational leadership and also stages of team development and how to use these leadership styles in those models.